The insult came like a whip through velvet silence. Get her off the stage. She's black. She's blind. She's going to ruin the Steinway. Those words, spat from the lips of a world-renowned pianist, could have ended everything before it began. But that night, the world nearly missed a miracle. Because the girl standing alone in the spotlight, Imani Rhodes, quiet, forgotten, and unseen, didn't flinch. She simply walked to the piano, sat, and placed her hands on the keys. What followed wasn't just music. It was movement, and it started long before the world learned her name. The Harmonique Theater in Boston glittered that evening with chandeliers and polished shoes, tuxedos and silk gowns, crystal glasses clinking in hushed hands. It was the rehearsal night for the International Harmony Gala, the classical world's most prestigious event, where legacy carried more weight than talent and tradition was a locked door. And then the silence cracked. From behind the velvet curtains emerged a girl no one recognized. 15 years old, dark-skinned, dressed simply in black with no sparkle or ornament. In her hand, a white cane, the symbol of her blindness and the scepter of her defiance. Imani Rhodes. She moved cautiously but without hesitation, her footsteps soft across the wooden stage. Her cane tapped once against the polished floor and then was set aside. She reached toward the Steinway and Sons D. 274 at the center of the stage, fingertips hovering, trembling. That's what happened. Get her off the stage. She'll ruin the piano. The voice belonged to none other than Julian Ashcroft, the frosted titan of American piano, white-haired, icy-eyed, revered and feared in equal measure. He stood tall in a tailored suit, his silver cufflinks gleaming under the theater lights like miniature gavel strikes. She's blind. Who the hell let some unknown black kid touch my $150,000 Steinway? This isn't some sympathy showcase. A few murmurs, a cough, awkward glances among the attendees. But no one stood up. No one said a word. But Imani did not retreat. Instead, she moved forward. She paused once more, adjusted her seat, and placed both hands on the keys. Ashcroft growled from backstage. Stop her. She'll embarrass herself. She didn't hear Heimer, maybe she did, and chose not to care. Her fingers found their place, not with the force of protest, but the gentleness of memory. She pressed the first key. A single note floated out. Not dramatic, not bold, but it was pure. And in that breathless second, everything else fell away. The room, moments ago, so certain of her failure, held its breath. What they didn't know was that this moment had been years in the making. 2 winters ago, a battered social services van dropped 13-year-old Imani at the Eastwell Conservatory of Music in Hartford, Connecticut. The conservatory, a cathedral for the children of diplomats, award-winning composers, and industry heirs, was not meant for girls like her. Her suitcase was cracked, her cane wrapped in aging duct tape. No parents, no patron, no place. She was admitted on a technicality, a pilot program called Echo Access. It allowed disadvantaged youth to observe classes, not to participate. She was told not to speak unless spoken to, not to play, not to touch the instruments, not to expect to be heard. But Imani had other plans. Each day, she sat quietly outside classroom 3C, where Professor Ellis Camden taught advanced harmonic structure. She listened to everything through the slightly ajar door, every scale, every chord, every mistake. At night, she recreated them on the desk of her dorm, using her fingers as hammers and her thigh as keys. Her world had no music stands or metronomously the rhythm of steps in hallways and the whisper of shifting papers. She never made a sound, but she never missed a note. The students ignored her. The faculty looked through her. One evening, when she accidentally entered a rehearsal room, she was mocked by Brandon Duval, a senator's son. Did someone adopt a seeing eye pet? The laughter stung, but she said nothing. She simply placed her hand on the piano for a brief second, then turned and left. Even dorm supervisor Margaret Hanley murmured passive corrections. Imani, honey, you don't want to make people uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. It was a knife disguised as kindness. But she endured, and she listened harder. Then one night changed everything. Professor Camden stepped out of 3C after class and caught her hands moving in the air playing an invisible melody. He didn't interrupt. He simply asked, "Were you visualizing the fugue?" She paused, startled but nodded. "Don't apologize," he said. "Play it right." He led her to an old and used storage room with a forgotten upright piano and dim lights. There he taught her not with sheet music, but with stories with feeling. A D minor wasn't just a chord. It was a goodbye. A major seventh was a memory. A fugue, a race against one's own ghost. Imani never needed to hear something twice. She learned with her bones. And as he watched her grow, Camden did something radical, submitted her name to the Young Virtuoso Showcase. No isa, no photo, no mention of blindness. Only a recording of an improvised piece she'd composed on a rainy Tuesday. She wasn't selected. She was assigned a 7:45 a.m. audition. No yagis, no introductions, just a broken piano and a curt nod. She played Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. She played not to impress. She played to live. And someone listened. The janitor, Mr. Hank Richardson, watched from the shadows. He knew little about classical music, but he cleaned up after some of the greatest musicians in history, and what he heard from Imani that morning made him cry. He uploaded a video clip to an old forum, titled it simply, "Blind Black Girl Plays Rachmaninoff from Memory." No one paid attention, until they did. Within 72 hours, 3 million views. Comments from Tokyo to Paris. An Argentine pianist wrote, "She made me cry. I haven't cried in 10 years. The International Music Institute tweeted, "We've watched the video. We want her to open the gala this year." Eastwell's board panicked. Camden was scolded. Duval scoffed. "It's a gimmick," he spat. But no one stopped the tide. Imani Rhodes was invited to perform at the Crescendo Hall Gala. She would open. Julian Ashcroft would follow. When he saw the schedule, he erupted. "She plays first? I will not go on after that." The director replied calmly, "You may withdraw, Mr. Ashcroft." But she cannot. And so Imani played first. She didn't play Beethoven, or Chopin, or Mozart. She improvised. Her first note was a whisper, a breath. Then came the wounds, the rage, the memories sewn into melody. No harmony textbook could contain her defiance. Ashcroft froze. She played not to entertain. She played to indict. And when it ended with silence, not sound, no one moved. Finally, someone whispered, "Is that her piece for the gala?" She smiled softly. That was just the warm-up. That night, under the velvet curtains of Crescendo Hall, Imani walked barefoot in a plain black dress, carrying nothing but her white cane and her mother's old flute. She sat. She played. No orchestration. No fanfare. Just a story about being left out, being ignored, being buried, and surviving anyway. In the middle of the piece, she stopped playing the piano and picked up the flute. She played a breath, a memory, a promise. She finished with silence, and the world stood, not to cheer, to apologize. Imani turned down every offer, labels, awards, features. She said nothing. She disappeared, except she hadn't. From a village in Ghana, where drummers mimicked her footfalls, to a prison in Georgia, where a man tapped her rhythm on the wall, to a child with cancer who cried into a melody titled "The Breath You Left Behind," Imani had become the silent pulse beneath every unspoken note. No one saw her, but everyone heard her. Eastwell eventually opened Bell House, a new wing designed for students with no titles, no pedigrees. It had no portraits, just an inscription in Braille. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is where everything waits to be heard. Imani never returned, but her music played in every corner. Royce, the man who once dismissed her, now lived alone, playing a score in Braille he could not read but one he could feel. And somewhere, in a mountain town, a child finds a music sheet tucked inside a bench. No title, no name, just one line. "If you hear something in the silence, then I was once here." Imani Rhodes never asked the world to listen. She taught it how.